Welcome to a very special Card Diary by Hobbyist Thompson. I'm your host, Denny Cards, and today we have on this podcast, in the podcast studio, slash basement, slash laundry center, washer, dryer, not going in the background. This is a one-on-one conversation with the promoter, one half of the promoting team of Culture Collision Trade Show, Prizm
hmm
Gawd, Raphael Mosley. How are you doing tonight?
What's up, man? I'm good. Good. Enjoying myself. It's a good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. So, a lot of people will not know this. I think very few do, but you and I tried to have a podcast recording like a year and a half ago, like early 2023. What I find to be really amazing in this hobby space is that was back when not a lot of people really knew about me and my podcast and all that stuff. Actually,
Yep.
I'm sorry, not early 2023, more like July, August, so maybe like a year ago. But because I started this podcast in May of 2023, that's right. So my apologies for that. But we early on because my first ever guest was Dan, the great curator,
hmm
and soon after that, I asked if you would be willing to be on, and you're like, yeah, sure, let's roll. And we tried recording. You were in a secret, undisclosed location where cell service was a little bit spotty and
Yeah.
I could never get that podcast out. So I'm glad to finally have you on the podcast.
Appreciate you for having me, man. Thank you.
But yeah, it's just a testament to it was nothing about me. It was more like people in the hobby who have prominent platforms and big voices were willing to kind of come on to a podcast that no one knew. And that,
Yeah.
again, that was a year ago. So for you to be willing to do that then, I really appreciate. And for us to finally get you on the podcast today is
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, so much has changed in the past year. I mean, I personally have grown so much in the past year. This podcast is flying, and I'm going to be simulcasting this on YouTube, and I'm trying to get that going as well. So I mean, how's the past year felt like for you?
Oh man, it's kind of been a big blur. I mean, I travel a lot to shows, so it's I always my weekdays go really quickly, and then my weekends go even faster. So it's
Yeah.
a blur.
So you do this full time, right? This is your full time thing.
That's correct.
Wow. Take so there's so many ways and places I want to go with this, but before we get to the jet setting, because I know you travel international and you travel for shows and also for like personal life and just enjoyment. Like you live a full life, and I want to share that with everyone who's listening. But before your Prism God, before the Cybertruck, before the trips, before the five-figure cards, maybe even before Prism Goddess, like when you were just a young Raphael, where were you? What what local card shop were you going to? Like, tell me more about young Prism before he was Prism God.
You want immediately before I became Prism Card, or you want like when I was a kid?
Kid Raphael.
Oh well, Kid Raphael was broke, lived on the west side of Chicago. Well, I ain't gonna say. I'm sorry. Let me not say that. I think that's a bad taste to say that. Let me
Mm,
reframe that. Let me because I feel like that would be disrespectful to my mom. My mom did the very
mm,
best she did. She was a single parent of two kids in their house. You know, rest in peace, my brother. Um, so starting out, I can't say we were poor. She had a great, she had a good job. She did the very best that she could, and I think she did an amazing job. So let me just say that first. Um, I'll say this: being black and being in the hobby and not necessarily really knowing what's going on. And I don't know if I even want to say that, but I'm just going to say basically just being a person in this space, not really knowing what's going on, can be very intimidating. And even as a child, it was intimidating. Um, my first exposure to sports cards was inheriting my cousin Steve's collection from being in the attic in my grandmother's house. That's the first time I ever seen cards a day in my life. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know the value. I knew that I saw Ricky Henderson, I saw Eddie Murray, and I saw some other baseball players that I recognized back in the day. It wasn't in nothing as extravagant as like Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle or anything like that. Ricky Henderson was probably the best card that I remember seeing back in the day, but it's only because I was watching these guys play baseball. I think as a kid, I think I watched more baseball than basketball because at the time, my grandfather was a big White Sox. I'm sorry, yeah, big White Sox fan. Hint the hat. Um, and my childhood was basically that. I only went to one card show. I'd never been to a card shop. Never knew anything about a card shop a day in my life until I got to high school. So, like the young version of me as a collector, I don't even necessarily think I was a collector. I think I was just more so exposed to it. I remember asking my mom to go to because I used to read the Chicago Sun-Times because back in the day we couldn't watch. We didn't have sports on TV.
Yeah.
Like we had WGN. Sometimes you catch a baseball game, but basketball games sometimes didn't come on every day. Like people don't understand. Like back in the day, you literally had to read the newspaper to see what the sports and like that's was. I mean, I know it's crazy to believe, but I'm that old, right? But I think that I remember recalling looking at Chicago Sun-Times one day, and I remember seeing the Chicago Sun-Times card show, which was probably the national back then at Rosemont Convention Center. And I was like, hey, Mom, I want to go to this. And she took me. That was the one time I ever did anything in the car world. Fast forward past that, high school was the first time I got exposed to it, was when I found out there was a card shop that was like a bus ride away from my high school. And here I am going with my two, at the time, some new guys that I never had just met going into high school. And they were like, hey, it's a card shop around the corner. And that's where I met my best friends growing up in high school, which was Jesse Howard and Ryan Glover. These guys were my friends through sports cards. And I'm probably going too fast, but I'm just going to, make it easy. I met those guys, and that was the most exposure I really ever got to like the hobby shops ever, which was in high school. I used to catch the bus after school, go there, and like open up packs. I might have had my mom used to give me like $5-10. Sometimes I save it. Sometimes I use my bus fare to open up a couple packs of cards. And I remember my little trick was this. So I think the CTA used to be like, I think $1.50 for a bus ride. And I think it covered like 3 rides within like 2 hours. Okay. So my trick used to be like, I get $5, $10 from my mom. Sometimes I don't even eat lunch. I just save up my little money. And I got like $20 for like a couple of days of saving it, right? Then I go to the card shop. And then as long as I hit that ride, I literally can take one ride to the card shop, one ride up, and then go back in the U and go back to my house. One time it didn't work out so well. I actually got stuck out there because I ended up missing the bus and I didn't have any money to get home. So I had to walk home from the card shop, which is a dreadful hour and a half, 2-hour walk, but that was fine. But that's kind of it, man. Like, I mean, my younger days of sports cards, I knew nothing. I didn't have any idea what was going on. I remember going to the Chicago show, Sun-Times show, and I remember seeing cards I couldn't even think about affording. I remember seeing Jordan rookies and seeing $1,000 or $2,000, whatever, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm not there, not even close.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, I ain't gonna lie. When I see younger kids nowadays walking around with $10,000 collections, I'm like, you have no clue.
Yeah, or $10,000 cards.
Oh, absolutely, man.
They're not even kids in the hobby. They're like little businessmen. They're like,
man, it's definitely different than what it used to be, and I mean, it's been a challenge, man. But it's been kind of fun to see how the hobbies change.
Yeah. So there's so many ways I want to go, but first I got to ask you. So you must be, or let me ask you, are you a big Michael Wilbon fan?
He's all right. I don't dislike him.
Okay.
I don't dislike him.
Chicago newspaper.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh well, he is more. I guess he's more Cubs.
Yeah, I don't dislike him.
Yeah. I actually did an episode on Eddie Murray. I got into a player break for like 50 cases of Topps Chrome Black, and for some reason, I just latched onto the memories of Eddie Murray. Switch hitting, Orioles, Mets. Yep. I mean, he just oozed cool. I mean, Ricky, because he was so fast. I mean, he was very beloved. But, I mean, there are some players I remember as a kid who those, especially Ricky Henderson, because his PSA 10 is like impossible to gem and all that. But
100%. Yeah.
I mean, there are some players who I remember being a kid where I was like, these guys are so fast and athletic, and like, yes, everyone thinks about Bo Jackson, but do you remember Cordell Stewart?
Of course, I remember Cordell Stewart,
Man,
quarterback.
he
Yeah,
was
Stewie.
he was
Yeah.
like, for a teen me, he was like the bee's knees, and I don't even remember talking about him too much in prior podcasts, but Cordell Stewart was just like, so like, I have cards of his, nothing super expensive, or nothing like one of those like PMGs, but
Yep.
I mean, I remembered just, you're talking about your friends and like going to the shop, like this, that really just made me think about that time, because yeah, I remember these. Now you would people, I guess there are some people who would collect Cordell Stewart, but you know
Absolutely.
he was like so electric.
He was. He had really good moments of being great. You know,
Yeah, he was never consistent. That was the
yeah,
problem.
it's like he had moments of being great. Cordell Stewart was really talented. He was kind of like, but it was tons of people before then. I mean, I used to love
Yeah.
Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb was one of
Oh
my
yeah.
guys going.
Yeah.
Dante Culpepper was another guy I used to
Oh
love.
yeah. Yeah.
So I
Dante.
mean, I mean, you
UCF.
can keep going. So I mean, like
Right.
I like these guys. These are the guys I used to watch. I mean, I never got a chance to see like Warren Moon really play. I think I heard his name, but I never got a chance to see him play. But I heard great things.
Right.
But the Dante Culpeppers and honestly, I feel like he's probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks that people don't really give as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
People don't talk about him.
He wasn't a real big runner, but I mean, like, I'm not here to just talk about all black quarterbacks, because I remember Steve Young, like, he was
Of course.
he was lefty, super fast. He was underrated as, like, I mean, he came right after, Joe Cool, Joe
Of
Montana,
course.
so
Yeah.
that was a big thing for him. But I mean, if you were like just fast and you could just kind of like just sling it, I mean,
hmm
the one big name we didn't even mention was Michael Vick. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
dude.
I mean, he came out. I mean, he came out later on, but I definitely think that Michael Vick is definitely made a big name for himself. I mean, shoot, if he could have stayed in the league successfully, he would have made
I
a big
know.
name for himself in the time frame. But yeah, still an amazing athlete though.
Yeah. So, no, I gotta say, like, you talking about little Raphael at the card shop and the intimidation, I that also made me think about when I was a kid at a local card shop. Like, one of the local card stores was owned by a Korean, like, mom, like a Korean lady, and she was always welcoming, and she was always nice, and like, she really was just, it was the place to go after school. And then I remembered a couple of LCSs a little bit further away, but you want to check out different ones in your area. But there's definitely like an intimidation factor. Some of these shop owners, they weren't so much about it was watching the kids to make sure they didn't steal anything, or like
Yeah.
they were very wary, right? I mean, I don't even know if it was like, depending on what color you were, but they were just so like, it was very transactional to them. It wasn't about community. It was about, I'm here to like sell you your packs of, your dollar packs of cards, and I want to make
Yeah.
sure you don't steal anything. You can't look at the singles unless I'm not pulling any singles out for you. You just look at them in the showcase, because I know you can't afford them.
Man, that's terrible. That's
So
terrible,
so
man.
I definitely, and even as a young adult, I've definitely gone through shops where I felt just kind of uncomfortable. And again, it's not really like a race or color thing. It's just more of like, some shop owners, they don't want to get up off their seat. They just want to sit there. It's like the old musty, dusty shop where these are the types of shops that Fanatics is trying to trying to say goodbye to, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's hard to really just say goodbye to those guys. I think you just have to the shops have never really been like mandated or anything like that.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like maybe like Tops maybe sent reps out to these different shops, but I don't really think they really held them accountable. Does that
Mm,
make sense?
yeah.
It's like, and it's unfortunate, man, for a very long time that our spaces really just never really took advantage of those moments, right? It's
Yeah.
like, how can we make things better? Like, well, how do you get more black or minority people or Asian people into the space and make them
Hmm.
feel comfortable, like it's unfortunate, but it's just, hey, maybe we're finally due to see some change. And I think we are due to see some change. We've seen a lot of change in the last couple years. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a spawn of you and myself, and we're all looking for the common denominator to try to figure out how to get things to the next level. So it's these conversations that have to happen that spark new ideas. So
Absolutely. So I want to get to that because I want to get to Culture Collision 5 in a moment here, but I remember this from social media, but you mentioned your brother's passing. So
Mhm.
that was recent. Was he your older brother, younger brother?
My younger brother, he passed away a few years ago.
Okay.
Yep, a few years ago.
All right. Well, my condolences. I remember someone else passing in your family that you guys posted about on your
My
show
cousin
page.
Steve, he actually worked the show. My cousin
My
Steve,
condolences.
he passed away a couple months ago. Uh,
My
about 6
condolences.
months ago, roughly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
My
appreciate that. Yeah, he was really That's actually the guy. I inherited his collection. That's my cousin Steve. Who I inherited his collection when I was younger. So yeah, he's pretty much a big deal, man. This guy's been in my life my entire life. He's always been my older cousin. I've
Mhm.
always looked up to. Um, man, so he's definitely missed, man. And I think about him a lot. I mean, him, my best friend Jesse, and then my cousin. Then my brother. So it's like, man, my three guys who always have my back. I like, man, no matter what,
Yeah.
I kind of lost those guys, and it's unfortunate, man. But through me, they can continue to live on because I definitely feel like we're just getting started, and we'll make sure that they're honored correctly.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, rest my condolences and rest in peace, cousin Steve.
yeah,
Regarding the legacy and just passing it on and just kind of representing Culture Collision 5. So your first four iterations of Culture Collision, they were held in different places in different kind of like capacity venues and all that, right? I mean, can you kind of explain? I know we did a little 5-minute sit down that I put up on
yeah.
Instagram Reels, but can you kind of share with the podcast audience and YouTube audience just what made you want to do this? That first place you chose, and then moving on to that second place and all that. Like, can you just kind of start from there, please?
Yeah. Um, so the first show, well, the idea of Coach Collision was kind of pushed out through my wife, pretty much saying that she wanted me to think outside of the box and do something different. And I had been thinking about a lot of different things, and the idea, of course, opening up a card shop just always seemed intimidating to me. And I just felt like doing a show would be easier. I was wrong. So it's definitely not easier. Um, and it's harder than I thought it was. And at the same time, though, I'm the type of person that likes to go into challenges with an open eye, open mind. And so for me, it was like, all right, well, let's just do a show. We'll knock it out in 90 days, which realistically is dumb. But but at the same time, though, we did a really successful job. We had our first show at the Renaissance Waverly Convention Center. It was probably about 50 or 60,000 square feet. We had about 350 vendors our very first show. We had 8 sponsors our first show. Um, and I think we did a really good job at that show. I mean, we got a lot of traction from that show, and then we put out our next show after that. It was like, all right, well, we do our first show in 3 months. Let's put out another one in 6 and see if we can do better. And I think that took us to the next level. And but we did try different venue. So our first show, we had 8 sponsors. Our second show, we had maybe around 10 to 12 sponsors. But the thing about our second show was only our second show, we were the first sponsor. I'm sorry, we were the first show to get eBay outside of the Nationals. And I thought that was really dope because for a long time, a lot of these guys wouldn't set up or do anything on a high level outside of the Nationals. And I kept telling people like this: if your only impression is the National, right? And the only time I get a chance to see you, you got to think about how many people can't get to the National, And I think that that's the only opportunity you get to put out like an idea of being able to like build a relationship with people. I think you got to be able to do that as many times as you can, because the reality is, like I told Bob Means at the time. Bob Means is the CEO of sports cards at eBay. I told him at the Nationals, I was like, look, if you're not at Culture Collision, you're not in the hobby. And I was like, all right, cool. He was like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, bro, if you're only at the Nationals isn't for everybody. The Nationals is a big, it is a place that most people would come. But the reality is we go to shows every weekend. So if you're not interested, and like, here's the thing, we use eBay every single day of our lives when it comes to any collectible. I'm not gonna lie, for the last 5 years, I've used eBay every day. So we're talking about most people are using eBay on an everyday basis for most of their lives, if not every day of their lives at this point. And especially if you're in a collectible space. So it's like, you guys have to have more face to face. And so that was really where I kind of pushed him, and he was like, "Oh man, you know what? We'll give you a shot." Came to the show. They did an amazing job. They did a great setup. They brought in some people. Man, Bob Means was one of the biggest ambassadors of Coach Collision and believing what I was trying to do and what I wanted to do. And that's what I loved about me and him going back and forth about this idea. Man, it was just beautiful to see that someone could, listen to a guy who really didn't even know his ideas and be like, you know what, you're right. Let's figure this out. And that was really pretty much a blessing, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. That was a moment where I was kind of really a proud moment. My wife was so happy. She was like, "We got eBay." I was like, "Yeah, we got eBay," and that was pretty dope, man. So that relationship lasted about 2 or 3 years, and that's where the growing pains come into play, right? It's like, how long can somebody continue to believe in your ideas and your process? And of course, things have changed. Like Bob Means is not no longer there, and of course, those relationships change and you grow, right? And then how do you grow past that? Because even with me, one of the things that I had to learn was, dang man, I'm like, you mean like the one of the most disappointing things for me is like, man, you ain't gonna come back, man. We're working hard to try to make this next one better. You don't want to come back, but then now it's like, even now with the fact that we're doing multiple shows a year now, and keeping people on their toes, and what new ideas do we have? And my dream idea once we finalize our team is to create each show to be a little different and create new experiences for each show. And I mean, honestly, that's been my idea from the beginning. And I think you're starting to see people, take ideas from some of the things I've said and some of the things that I've done, and created their own version of a culture collision. I mean, you got a Fanatics Fest. I mean, you have Burbank came in and they came out really aggressive as well. So I mean, it's definitely a lot of success story for our brand, and I mean, I'm pretty happy for it, pretty proud.
No, that you should be. I had such a great time. And so this is where I will do a little caveat. So I was part of the social media team for Culture Collision 5, which happened 2 weeks ago when, we're recording this right near the end of September. And again, I can't believe that it's been more than a year since we last tried to get on the podcast. But,
Yep.
Since that time, we talked I don't know, maybe like a month to 2 months ago. It was after Nationals, after Fanatics Fest, but just about how I, was excited to come to the show and how I could be involved in some way. And
Yeah.
talking to you and Prizm Goddess, we just had a great conversation about, what you guys wanted to see and what I could provide. And so,
Yeah.
this is where I will kind of say this is in no way was this podcast's appearance tied to kind of like the ambassadorship for the show and kind of the social media creation team.
Yeah.
But I am glad that it's happening. And you did say that I could ask any questions I wanted, and there are some
Sure. Go ahead.
tough questions I will get to. But before I get to them, I did want to say I very much appreciated you and Joyce for being such great hosts and hostesses
Of course.
for the show, and I had a fantastic time. And I know there was some, which we will get to, like some people on social media who are sour on the event and all that, but I gotta say, I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. I drank way too much free Monster energy drink. They're not a sponsor of this podcast or any of my content, but they had free drinks, and there's a saying I say, if it's free, it's for me, and
Mhm.
I should not have drank more than half of one, but I drank many more than half of one.
Man, you needed them though, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like, honestly, I'm thankful their partnership that we're gonna grow with too, man. I'm pretty happy about that too. So
Yeah, no,
definitely.
absolutely. So I want to get to some questions before we get to kind of like CC Culture Collision 5 and January Culture Collision
Of course.
6. You mentioned that there were some unanticipated, like it was harder than you thought it would be being a show promoter. So for any young budding up and coming show promoters, I did want to ask on behalf of them, so that they could learn what are some of the harder logistics of being a show promoter that you did not originally foresee.
It's vendors, man. I mean, vendors are very unpredictable. I mean, you try to be a vendor. I've been a vendor for a very long time. I ain't gonna say very long time, so let me not say that. But I've been a vendor for a while, and it's very hard to anticipate. And I think one of the hardest things for me, I will say this, is when you see people, you try to respect people. You think look at them as being a friend, right? And then if they don't show up to your party, you're a little upset, right? You're a little disappointed. I think that was the very first culture collision. I cried. I cried because ultimately I was very disappointed that some people didn't show up to the very first show, and I understood why. And I had to kind of take the emotion out of it, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it was kind of upsetting and disappointing, right? So, you work really hard to become, work really hard to do something, put something together. You invite people, they buy tables, they don't show up, this, that, and the other. It was very disappointing, man. I mean, so that was one of the things that I felt like was one of those, and you can't predict it though. But to me, I think that was those moments for me that was really hard, man. I mean, I think, like I said, after the show, man, I cried because it was still a successful show.
Hmm.
I wasn't really like crying to be like just sad about, completely sad about, people not showing up. I was actually more happy and proud about the people that did show up,
Hmm.
but it was still disappointing nonetheless. But it was just one of those things where it's just like, man, like it still was a growing pain, right? It's like hey, you tell everybody in the world I'm having a party, and then you see who's going to show up to your party, and then you're like, oh man, I ain't gonna be able to show up to your party, bro, because such and such. You're like, oh, okay, but I was at your party,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I came to you. I came to your birthday party.
right? But it
Uh,
happens, bro. It's all good though.
I I think it's very human, and you're being very vulnerable to say what you just said. I think that there is so much uh, machismo and kind of like I don't even want to use a term, but it's true, like toxic masculinity in the hobby. A lot of people kind of swinging around, being like, measuring things. I won't
Oh
say
yeah,
all
of
this
course.
stuff because
Yeah,
it's family friendly,
I feel
but I
you. I
try to
understand.
be. But there's just so much kind of like puffing of the chest, and it's like I really admire that you just said that. Thank you.
Oh man, I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm probably one of the most open people most of the time when I talk to people. I tell
yeah.
people, if they ask me a question, I usually like, hey, I'll be honest as much as I can.
We're gonna get to that real soon. I did want to ask you though, in your opinion, what makes for a great show? Like, what is the most important thing about a show in these different lenses? As a promoter, as a vendor, as a member of the public, the general admission. What is like? I don't even know if you want to say what is your most favorite show outside of Culture Collision, and maybe like say the National because it's its own little thing, not own little thing, but its own big thing. But do you have a favorite show? Like, what makes for a great show?
You asked me a couple different questions there, so
Yeah.
I was trying to start off with what I remember. You asked about my
Yeah, let's
favorite
take it
show.
piecemeal. I'm sorry. Yeah, what
You
makes
good? You
for a
good?
great
You good?
show in your opinion, from a promoter standpoint? What makes
What
for a
makes
great
for
show?
well, you asked about the most important things that I guess
Yeah,
at the show,
yeah.
right? And to me, it's the community of
Mm.
people, the right. I'm gonna say the right community of people. It always helps with making a show great. And then what was the other question after that?
So, like, as a vendor, what's the most important thing about a show? Is it just foot traffic and money, or
No, seeing nice stuff.
Yes,
I,
I like
I
that.
I can live with the fact of not, and I mean, of course, making money always helps, but it's one of those things where you can make money anywhere. I make money at home,
Mm, that's a good
so
way to put it.
yeah, so it's like it's all good. I don't have to, necessarily have to go to a show to just make money. I would rather. I mean, I'm not gonna say. I think having a good mix of both always is great, but it's one of those things where I go to a card show to see cards, man. I want to see
Yeah,
some cards. I want to see some nice stuff. Like I tell people all the time when they come up to my table, can I see what you got? And then well, it's not stuff like you got. Well, you never know what I like. I like other things outside of what I have on the table. So you
that
don't
is
necessarily know
true.
what I like. So you gotta, for those people out there that come past my table and feel like they can't show me, man, you're definitely wrong.
I've said this in my podcast and my other content before, but I think one of the biggest mistakes any new or seasoned veteran dealer could say is, "Oh, I'm just selling. I'm not looking to buy, or I'm not looking to trade." Because nothing against this particular show, but it's just it's my my lived experience. But I never had as many dealers as in the East Coast National turn me down for what I had in my with me. Like, I didn't say I have, low end, high end baseball, basketball. I just said, hey, you got some nice stuff here. I was wondering if you'd be willing to, do a part cash, part trade deal, because that's one of my favorite deals. Is because that way you can like really try to make things work, right?
Yeah.
Like part cash, part trade. That's my go to. I had I never had as many doors, quote unquote doors shut in my face by dealers. And I was just like, wow, that's the best way to keep someone at your table and just keep the conversation going and see some cards. But there were just dealers there that were just like, no, I'm not interested. And I'm like, that you're losing on potential customers and conversations when you
Yeah.
say it like that.
100%. It's relationships, man. This space is relationship based. So
Yeah.
you gotta talk to people sometimes.
Yeah. No, I haven't set up as a vendor a lot, but when I have, a young kid will come up to me. And again, these kids could have monster cards, but I think the best thing a dealer can say is, sure, I'll take a look. It
Yep.
it doesn't hurt to look. If you have like
I
five, 10
agree.
people at your booth and you're swamped and you can't look, I mean, that's total, hey, can you come back later? Or, I got too many irons on the stove. Like, you can say things to kind of, let someone down a little bit easier, but I mean, yeah, we're at the card show to see the cards and to make relationships. And
Hmm.
if you're just going to go into the transactional mode of I just need to sell everything in front of me because I need to get rid of it out of my house. And again, it's so funny. The people who say that they're only there to sell, of course, are the ones who have things at double comps, right? Like
Yep.
they have 2021 prices.
Yep.
So I think it's just so funny. But no, I'm not here to hate on any particular show. It's just I could not believe the amount of kind of like uh I don't know what to call it, like rigidity or inflexibility.
Mm,
So general admission, I imagine that's the same thing. Seeing nice stuff, that's what you want to see when you're a walker. I guess there's
of
another way
course.
to put it, right? Walker,
Yeah.
seeing nice stuff, and like you said, you can make money anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so
I think that's the one thing that people have to understand as being a vendor, and this is something for the vendors that are out there actually vending at shows.
mm,
You have to learn how to be a vendor. Like being a
mm,
vendor means like, hey, you have to create relationships and you have to figure out ways to become profitable while you're at the show.
yeah,
Which means sometimes you may have to walk away from the table. You may have to buy
ah,
your way. You may have to buy your way out of a good. I mean, buy your way out of a bad show and turn it into a good show by buying something.
yeah,
Maybe
no,
something you
absolutely,
maybe take a chance on something that maybe you would have normally not bought, and then maybe you turn it to something good. I've done that several times. Um, and you never know what might happen. Sometimes you just sell at a show all day long, but that's fine too. But again, you can sell anywhere.
yeah. Rob, I had him on my last podcast, and I'm gonna have him on the one after yours because this is gonna be episode 92, I believe.
Yeah.
But in episode 91, Rob said he has
Rob
to
who?
stay. Oh, collector's choice card. Sorry.
Okay, got you. Got you. Okay, got
Yeah.
you.
Cash out king, Rob. So he
Mhm.
he was like, I have different strategies with different shows, and you have to be flexible. You have to think on your
100%.
feet.
That's
You have
exa
to you
that's
have to
it.
figure out, yeah, like what's going on.
Exactly.
Check out the atmosphere, take the pulse of the room, and go, can I buy my way out of this show, or what can I do to make this
Of course.
successful? Not
Yep.
just not just working with the hand that's dealt to you, but making the
Create it.
most out of your hand. Yeah,
You have to
creating
create
it.
sometimes you have to create the opportunity that if the opportunity is not there. So, I mean, like I back in the day when I first started going to shows and I used to go to Spartanburg, I used to go to Raleigh, North Carolina, I used to
Mhm.
go to Scottsboro, Alabama, I used to go to Huntsville, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama when I couldn't afford to go outside of my comfort zone, right? Because I
Yeah,
anywhere that I would go, it would be all driving distance.
yeah,
And that's when you first start. You got to do what you feel comfortable and what you can do, right? You fill up your
right.
gas tank, you go. You spend 50, $60 on filling up your gas tank, you go, you give it a shot. Hopefully you come back being more productive than you did and you make the best out of it. I'll never forget one of the best deals I've ever did, and I only had $600 to my name. I
Mm,
spent $600 on a lot of Prizm base cards, and actually it was base cards and inserts. And in that insert kit, I had a Prizm Mojo Kobe Bryant from his last year playing in the league. I didn't
mm,
know that card was worth a lot of money. I just bought it, and hey, I bought a couple of little cards looking through somebody's dollar box, And I spent like $600, I think, total. I bought a bunch of raw cards. I graded almost everything he gave me. The best card was a Prizm Mojo Kobe Bryant. I sold for like $7,000.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So,
That's
and
killer.
that, but see, and that's taking the good with the bad, and it's taking advantage of the situation. And sometimes you, if ain't nothing in the room, maybe you may have to dig in some dollar boxes. You might have to try something different. You may have to talk to some people that maybe you have never talked to before, because you might talk to them. That relationship might spawn a different situation,
Yeah.
you know, or they might say, you know what, I do have some stuff at home. I'll come back later. I'll bring something for you. Or it might be another deal you might do in the future. So it's like you never know what might happen. But yeah, you're absolutely right though, man. So I ain't gonna talk your head off. You good?
No, I love it. I really do. One thing I do want to say is I don't want to pause the conversation, but I feel like your audio, there's a little bit of crackliness,
Oh,
and I was
sorry.
wondering
I'm probably getting too aggressive. Sorry.
if it's like a wire thing or a
Yo,
connection thing. It just yeah, try it again.
hello?
Yeah, there's a little
Yo,
something.
yo.
I can hear you. It's just more of a actually, let me pause this just to see if I can help it. All right, we are back. Mic check, mic check.
Yes. I had to take my mic off, so
Yes. So there's a little bit of echoiness, but you know what? It's better than crackliness, so I do appreciate that. I apologies for having to ask you to do that, but I just wanted to make sure the audio was going to be clear for the audience. So, can I ask you before I get to other things, because I just mentioned Rob. Rob wanted me to ask you what happened to the dreadlocks. I didn't even know you had dreadlocks.
who?
Apparent Rob was like, "What happened? Is this not true?"
No, I never had dreadlocks.
So, man, what did he message me? He told me to ask about the dreadlocks. I said, I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to tell him
Was the
that you
collector had dreads? Was the
Wiz.
collector had dreads? He cut his hair.
See,
He cut
I'm
his hair.
messaging him right now. Man.
I'm not gonna answer that question for Wiz though, but you can definitely ask Wiz.
All right. I just DM'd because I had my Instagram up because I was looking for questions.
Yeah.
I just DM'd Rob. It wasn't Prizm, LOL, because I don't want to be the one to get in trouble for getting people mixed up. All right. I asked on his behalf.
You're good.
He said it was Wiz. Okay. All right. See, now I feel like I need to edit this out. Okay.
You're good.
So when it comes to so following up on those other questions that I had, what makes for a great show? You explained it from a promoter, vendor, general mission. This might be hard for you because I know, I'm sure you don't want to like make anyone upset or anything like that, but do you have other than your own and other than say the National, do you have a favorite show that you like to go to?
Oh man. Man, I feel like I used to. I would say this. Nationals is still probably the best show for what it's worth. And it's a lot to say in that, but I'll just say that's the easiest way, the easiest answer. The good thing about the Nationals is it gives you the most amount of time to maximize whatever you would like to do at that show. I always call the Nationals like the Super Bowl of sports cards. Because if you think about it, it's a week-long celebration of the hobby. And I know they'll probably steal this idea, so I'll give it to them. That's fine. A week-long celebration of the hobby, where collectors come together, starting technically sometimes, man, as early as I've been to the Nationals as early as Monday, but I know people who've been to the Nationals as early as Sunday, Sunday to Sunday. But for the most part, I'm usually there on Monday or Tuesday, and then you're there on Sunday. So, I mean, you get a chance to hang out with people. You get a chance to try different food. And plus, most of the time it's in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. So anytime I get to go home to Chicago, man, I'm good. I enjoy myself. I go see my mom. I see my daughter. And then I go to the show. If I get a chance to do both in one day, it's amazing. And, that's what makes it fun, man. I think that's, a part of traveling is being able to try new things and be able to go to new destinations and the places you've never been before. And that's probably the most incredible part about the hobby, is being able to kind of do those type of things, especially when you're doing it full time. So I like that. I never been to Atlantic City before. I know people trashed it, but the last one I just had, I never been to Atlantic City before, and I did just fine, and I enjoyed it. So it's all in what you make it. But I would say the Nationals is still, to me, it's up there. But I'll say, if I had the blank check, and I'll say this again, if I had the blank check that Fanatics Fest had, I'd probably have Fanatics Fest as being my show.
Oh yeah, I mean no cost was spared, no expense was spared. They really went all out. But again, when you're a conglomerate and you're a huge corporation, you can absorb losses on the short term because you have a long term vision, and
Yeah.
you can absorb those operating expenses and marketing. Like you just have. I mean, yeah, Fanatics Fest in New York City was a lot of fun. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in about a month in Orlando,
Yeah.
the first weekend of November. But we'll see how that goes. But I really like what you said about Atlantic City, about it's all about what you make it. You seem like that type of person who, again, with your general disposition and your demeanor, it's kind of like you are willing to be flexible, like make the most of things, make the most of life, enjoying good, friendships, and just having a wonderful, um, you know, surrounding yourself with good people. So I wanted to talk about that, because, well, is it true? What do you believe what I said?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. So the reason I asked all that is because it seems like there were some people who are not very happy with Culture Collision 5. With like, it seemed like they weren't amenable to trying to make things work. They were just, I don't want to poo-poo what people were saying, but kind of like people were not like, oh, the foot tracker wasn't as good, or like, there was empty tables and all that. But like you and I just talked about, like, you make the most of you. The people who are the most successful are the ones who make the most out of any hand that they're dealt.
All right. So, I mean, you addressed a couple of issues and a couple of situations. I'll say this. Every show after the Nationals didn't have full, nobody had the same traffic that we had 6-7 months ago at the beginning of the year. Nobody. So if you take in consideration that Culture Collision had to battle against I would say oversaturation of shows, right? Another major show, which is the Minnesota show, right? The other aspect of it is Topps Rip Night, which also took a lot of vendors from us. And then there was this miscellaneous situations, I would say. I think the miscellaneous situation that kind of was intriguing to me was people were buying tables and didn't show up. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that did really well at Culture Collision, and I don't think that takes away anything. People can say whatever they want, but I went to the Dallas show and I set up at every show that has been going on, and it looks the same to me. It's the same no matter what show. We just got back from Charlotte. It's the exact same thing I've seen in Charlotte. Same thing I've seen in Dallas. And I'm sure it won't stop. But the one thing that I will say is this. I'm the type of person that's very resilient. I'm the type of person that actually likes to I'm a problem solver. So if it's a problem, then if it's something that I need to figure out, then trust me, my team is working on it. It's one of those things where we look at it as an area of opportunity and a learning experience to say, guess what? Maybe the Georgia market doesn't have as good of a collecting base as that we thought. So let's focus on our collecting base. The reality is the Georgia market has never been a great market, ever. That's why when the Nationals came here in 1996, they never came back. So when someone decided to actually do a show, it makes it successful 5 times. And then that's where, and then at this point, we're seeing a saturation in the show market. That's the real reality that we live in. But the reality is this. I look at it as an area opportunity to reach out to new collectors and new vendors and new people and create new collectors. That's why at some point I will be opening up my own card shop at some point, because I believe that there's an opportunity for people like myself that look like myself to be a part of a space so that we were never really included to be in. So, and the other aspect of it is the Georgia market, I don't think 100% really supported us, and I think in a way that really made sense. I think that, in my opinion, I feel like even if you look at it as deep as this, and I've said this before, and I'm not afraid to say it now, the reality is this. if Tops really wants to become successful in growing our space, then they will look at, instead of dividing themselves or making themselves looking more inclusive to do what they want to do, they would focus on trying to work with everybody in the community instead of just sitting here doing their own thing and saying, if you want to be a part of us, you have no choice but to be a part of us. When it was us before there was them. You see what I'm saying? So I think that that's where the things have to change. And in order for us to grow, the reality is Tops probably could have did a Tops Rip Night at Culture Collision the same day it would happen at the Minnesota Card Show. But it's deeper than that, though, right? Couldn't Jeff Wilson have potentially did Tops Rip Night at Culture Collision? There's nothing that separates that. The reality is this, and this is a sad reality that we actually live in. Card shops believe that card shops are more relevant than card shows, and that's wrong. Card shops are actually extensions of the card shops that actually creates a different idea that's supposed to be on a massive level. That's why the Nationals works, because everybody supports the National. If I was the National, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be like, well, he's the National. Everybody's going to go. That's the sad reality that we actually live in, is we pick and choose who we want to support, when the reality is we should all be supporting each other. It should be going hand in hand. Let's create an experience that nobody, at the end of the day, and it's not saying this because I'm not that type of person. Again, I say I'm resilient. But if Culture Collision ever failed, it wouldn't be my failure. It'd be Georgia's failure. It would be Atlanta's failure. Because at the end of the day, if people in Atlanta are too blind to realize that we should be supporting each other and building up our community, and seeing someone actually take the time and initiative to try to make things better, we should be backing this person instead of picking and choosing who we want to back. I think that's the problem. But go ahead. I'm done.
No, I just wanted to keep going. I just have some follow-up questions with regards to that. And this is not to put you on the, a hot seat, but I'm
not intimidated whatsoever. I'm good.
No, I mean, I try not to be intimidating. It's just more of, I'm curious. So there were some people who thought that the Hobby Rip Night was kind of like, there's a saying, I'm not going to get it right because I didn't have this like planned, but once is like random, twice is coincidence. Like, at a certain point it's coincidence. It's not a coincidence anymore. So people were like, wow, like how coincidental was the National and Fanatics Fest timing, East Coast National with Fanatics timing, same weekend, Hobby Rip Night, same weekend as Culture Collision. So I have no actual proof of any of this, but a lot of people were wondering why.
Dallas and Fanatics Fest in Orlando is the same weekend. The next one.
There you go. Right. So again, I don't know what the saying is. I should have probably prepared and Googled it, but once is a chance, two is a coincidence, three is like a pattern or whatever it is. And so I'm thinking, how I will very much admit, I was a show ambassador social media team, but as soon as my time on Saturday was done, I was like, I really want to go, because I'd never been to Core JSQ, but I was like, I really want to go and check it out. So I was trying to I was kind of like that dog with the, meat in his mouth and trying to do everything all at once. And, I do apologize if I kind of like left too early on Saturday, but I just wanted to experience everything, and I can't clone myself. I can't be in two places at once. And I'm sure some of the dealers, because I thought, in my opinion, I was like, man, Minneapolis and Georgia, they're so far, Minnesota, they're so far apart. But there were dealers who actually had a hard choice. They're like, I have to choose one or the other. Speaking about Rob again, he was like, I chose Fanatics Fest over East Coast National. I chose Culture Collision over Minnesota. I don't know what I'm going to do between Dallas Card Show and Fanatics Fest. He thinks he might even be able to do both, which
I'm
in Orlando. You're going to do both. It's those are not two local shows. There's two big shows in one weekend, and you're gonna do both.
Yeah, I think you. Well, as a promoter, I have to do both because I have to be able to see what's going on. I see. I'm always watching. I'm always paying attention. I'm always analyzing. I'm always.
You want to see it with your You want to see it with your own eyes, and not just like
a blank check. So I get a chance to see what something I potentially would have tried looks like if I would have had the money.
Gotcha. How is when it comes to the how do I ask this? When it comes to okay, not the conflicts. What am I trying to say here? All right, I had it into my tongue and I am like trying to figure out. All right, tell me more.
Say
I'm
what
gonna
you
have,
mean. Let's
I'm
go.
gonna have to pause this out too. I know, no, it's not that I'm trying to like find a different way to say it. I really had a thought in my mind and I'm completely drawing a blank. When it comes to these shows, do you feel like there's burnout?
Oh, yes, for most people.
Mm,
Not for me.
mm,
Not for me. I feel like man, if you don't like it, if it's like I see myself as an athlete, right? So if you look at yourself as an athlete, right? Do you really get burnt out for real? I mean, if you go to the gym every day and you're working out and you're training and you're doing what you need to do, and like, I'm a card show athlete. I went to, let's see how many days. I'm actually going to show you this on camera. So this is something intriguing. So when I say I'm a card athlete, right? When I look at this, I'm a sports card athlete. All right.
hmm
How many days to say I've been in a hotel this year?
So for the viewers, it looks like it says 121.
Okay. So when you say, am I burnt out? You think I'm burnt out?
No,
I'm talking like I'm burnt out. I
you.
am tired, but I'm okay. I can go to sleep, get up tomorrow, do it again.
Wow. Yeah, no, you definitely have a passion for this and you love it. And like you said, this is your full time and you're good at it and you're kicking major butt. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I think for me as a part-timer with a young family, like I have all these like, but they're not even like excuses, it's just like I'm trying to balance everything and I'm really struggling with trying to figure out
Do it.
how much you have an advice.
I do it. I have it now. My wife wants to spend time with me, but she also understands this is my career path, right? This is what I
Mm,
do. We are working on things for that balance, right? We put a team together. We
mhm,
brought you on to help with content. We brought Jay on to help with content. We're
mhm.
building our team together so we can create balance, right? But
Yeah,
that's the
right.
sacrifice that you give to get to where you want to get to, which is how do we get there? I think as long as you take it with an approach of this is where I want to be at, let me see what it's like. I
Mm,
think you have to go into it with I think you have to have a conversation with your partner and say,
mhm,
hey, look, this is where I want to go. This
mhm,
is what I think it looks like.
mhm.
Let me see what it looks like. Let me see how it feels. And you tell me how you feel. And then we figure it out and we adapt and we figure out like, all right, well, maybe I go to shows on Friday night and come back on Saturday night. So I'm only really
Mm,
on like a day, you know,
right.
and I guess there's plenty of people who just go for a day, for a show for a day, and they make the best out of it. They're on a high level, they're making things happen. They go home and go to sleep.
Yeah. No, I see these younger folks who are like chasing their dreams and they're like, I quit my corporate job, I quit this, I quit that. And I'm like, man, my medical insurance and dental is too good.
Well, I mean, I think you're offset. You can offset those type of things. I think, but that's a
Yeah,
different conversation. I think
I know.
I think when you're passionate about something, you
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. So yeah, you definitely have passion for it. I love the analogy to an athlete. Again, yeah, they don't get burnt out. It makes them stronger. The more experiences, the more reps under their belt, they just
100%.
get better, bigger, and all that. So, um, I did want to ask again. Like people think these are all conspiracies, but as a promoter yourself, like, because some people are like, no, that's the only weekend that Fanatics could get. Fanatics Fest at Javits Center. Oh, that's the only weekend they could get the Orange County Convention Center for, just so happens to be the same weekend as Dallas Card Show. And it's like, oh, every week it's a card show. So how hard is it for a promoter such as yourself to secure the venues that you secure? Because like, you've mentioned you've had them in different locations and all that. Like, is it as hard as it seems?
Well, it can be. I think it can be. I mean, it's been times where I thought I had a date locked down and end up being like off by like a day or two or off by a week
Mm,
or two. And it's just one of those things where you're like, hey, oh yeah, it's January 23rd to the 25th. Oh man, you meant Hall B and A, B? Oh, that room, that's not available. You can do C and D. Yeah, no, I want Hall A and B because we already have a map set up for A and B. And then you're like, all right, well, you know what? I'll push it back a week later. And those things happen, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's natural. It's definitely a part of, I will say this for the young people who are actually thinking about doing the show. Nothing easy about doing it. There's nothing you can do to really make it as simple as you would like because there's always going to be a fire to put out, period.
Sounds like Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
Always
that's
goes
just
wrong.
Beast of, yeah. So speaking about the venue, so Culture Collision 5, the one that just happened 2 weeks ago, you had exhibit halls C and D. Because I remember A and B had like a reptile show. It was kind of crazy. I was like, I kind of wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to. For the last show, and that was the first show. Yeah, the one January we were there. So
that's wild. But you have a big enough space where you have a basketball court. You had a Cybertruck there. I think that was your own, right? Or was that
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So the basketball tournament this time did not happen. I remember. I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into that, but I remember there were some logistical issues out of your control that precluded that from happening.
Yeah. But go ahead. I know if he was asking. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh no. Let's talk about that. But then, like, how important was it for you to try to have that element? You know, these elements of like the sneakers, the jewelry, the basketball, like things that were not cards in the trade show, because you don't call it a card show, you call it a trade show.
Yeah, that's correct. I think it's very important. I always tell people Coach Collision is a sports card based show. You know, people know me for sports cards, but these other elements are really reflective of what you even see in my background. Funko Pops here. I have piggy banks there. I have, art here. I have sneakers over here. I have jerseys and memorabilia back there. On the top of my cabinet, it's all toys up there. On top of that, on top of here is more toys across my sneaker wall. So trust me, there's art right in front of me, outside of my whiteboard too. Art right in front of me. So it's like all of the collective of things that I like are at Culture Collision. And I believe that there is a space for that. And I think that there's a conversation that can be had about that, where people can come in for one thing and then see another thing and be like, oh man, that's dope too. And I've seen it happen where we haven't put out the content yet, but there's people who've done trades for sports cards to sneakers. And the sneaker guys are actually being open to trading for sports cards because I'm having to educate them and say, hey, look, you're asking $500 on this. You could probably you could sell it. You could sell that card to someone over here for $450 or $480. And maybe it's not the full 500, but if you're making money, you're still making money and you're still doing the same exact thing. It's just a different way of doing it. So it's conversations that are being had. So it's really cool just to see it happen organically.
Awesome. No, I love that. I did buy jewelry for my wife. I did buy a couple of jerseys for my boys.
Good.
And so I was happy to do that. I did shoot some content at the basketball, just kind of like pickup games that kids are playing.
Yeah.
So I did get some, I'm trying to work on my camera skills because come January, the charity creator game, if I'm not playing in it, I'll run content for it.
There you go. Well, and we're still working through that. We'll be making some announcements soon, probably 90 days out, to be honest with you. I think right now we're just kind of putting a team together, having conversations, seeing who's going to be involved. And then in 90 days out, we're just going to hit it, but you'll definitely be involved. So we appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you. So 90 days out would be kind of like end of October. So about a month from now, we're probably about 120 days out here.
Yeah, that's correct.
What do you want to tease anything for folks who are going to be listening to this before the end of October? What to look forward to in January?
I'm not going to say anything, man. We got to work. I have look, for this last 2 weeks, I've been really, and it doesn't seem like it because I haven't really said much about it, but we're really, really working, and we're really, really focused, and we're really making sure we create a better experience than we have in the past. And here's the thing. I mean, some people this is another thing you can kind of tell the future promoters in the future. You will never make everybody happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because in January, when we were wall-to-wall packed, right? In previous shows, wall-to-wall packed, right?
Yeah.
You still hear people make excuses or, hey, the music's too loud, or this is this and this is that. And so at the end of the day, can you truly make people happy? No, you can't. So I think at the end of the day is you take the good with the bad, you learn from your mistakes, you grow, and you keep going. And that's exactly what we're going to continue doing. And I think the 90 days out, you'll get a message from Miss Prizm Gawd, and she's going to let you know we're 90 days out. Get your hotel room, and we push it. Most of the vendors who are previous vendors is going to receive a phone call from most of us, all of us, and at some point in time. And we love to have everybody come back and have some fun in January for Card Star Weekend. So it should be fun.
Awesome. I love to hear it. So I'll try to get you out. I did say we're like almost exactly at the hour mark here. You did share a little bit of nugget. I don't know how much of a breaking news or how much, you've talked about it, but did I hear you right? You said that you are considering opening up a LCS in the future?
Yeah, I absolutely have plans on doing that. That's one of the reasons why I want to get Culture Collision on autopilot, so I can make the time to put in the ideas that I really want to implement for LSC. So
I can only imagine
sorry.
I can only imagine that this is going to be not just a nothing against the Dusty Musty, but like I imagine that the type of show, the shop that you're gonna have is like gonna be kind of like Culture Collision, like an experience. It's gonna be more than just showcases of singles and like wax on the on the wall, but kind of like an experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely want to get away from a lot of the stigmas that are out there. I definitely want to put a new idea out there. I don't know, man. I really feel like I want to break the mold, man. I think that it's always kind of been my own thing. I don't really want to fall against the grain of what everybody else is doing. So I think that's where my mind is at right now, is trying to do something a little different. And even in next year, this next show that we're working on right now is trying to figure out different things that make sense, but that'll be the same exact strategy for the card shop, is trying to figure these things out. But you'll know more about that in the next six or 7 months or so.
Nice. Okay, a lot to look forward to. I'm not going to pry anymore. I've had you for longer than I said I would have you on.
You're good.
I think we just have to do one in the future, but I'm really excited for my next trip down there. I had a great time. Definitely enjoyed the Battery. Had Chick-fil-A. I mean, that you go down to Georgia, you got to have some Chick-fil-A. I mean, that's
there you go.
I did notice they were not open on Sunday.
No, you're not. Kidding. Definitely not.
Yeah,
crazy, right? No Chick-fil-A on Saturdays.
That's the flip I think people should get into. You buy all the chicken sandwiches on Saturday, then you sell them on Sunday.
Right.
No, you've been awesome. Again, it was a pleasure to have you on and have Prizm Gawd on and to work with both of you. And I look forward to future partnerships, collaborations, and all that. But again, this particular podcast recording was not part of any sort of promotion or ad. I just wanted to have post-show thoughts with you. You were very open and honest about kind of everything about just, you make the show to the best of what you can. And, and like you said, you can't make everyone happy because, man, as a content creator, I definitely know that you can, if you try to, you will fail. I know that for sure.
Do things to the best of your ability, man. That's one of those things where I think that's what made me so successful earlier, man. I felt like I've always kind of been vulnerable and one of those guys that would just tell you how I feel and just, and that's why people call me and they ask me questions. But I'm always been a straight shooter, man. At the end of the day, as you tell me how you feel, I'll tell you how I feel, and we keep going. But I'm really excited to see where the hobby is going to go. I'm still excited about where the hobby is going. But if anybody out there that works for Topps or Fanatics, whatever, because they're the leader of the new school at this point, right? It's very important that you guys work with us, man, instead of focused on. So a lot of these guys, I feel like, to me, and maybe I don't know as much as I think I know, right? But I would like to see you guys be more open to being a part of the show instead of just being separate. The last Culture Collision in January, Topps did a trade night. It was separate from Culture Collision. They invited a guest that was separate from Culture Collision. They did do some things at the show, which was great, but be a part of the show. I think I feel like we do ourselves a discredit by just not working with each other. We just got to figure out a balance, man. I think at the end of the day, that's all. So that's just my 2 cents, man, for everybody.
I think that's a great way to end this. And I will say, like I said in the last episode, fanatics, I think it's not like Mike Mahan or Michael Rubin are listening to this podcast, but they do have people who
follow me.
They have people who work for them, right? They have their interns and their minions, and well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called you minion, but the people who are listening to this, report up not just this podcast, but all these other hobby podcasts, and they create notes, or they'll take, they'll listen. They are listening. They do have their eyes and ears on the ground. It's just a matter of how much do they actually want to incorporate and work with people, as opposed to kind of like, not saying that they're stealing ideas, but like they're actually, working with people, as opposed to just kind of like working around people. So I do hope that, that what you said is taken to heart. But again, corporations don't have hearts, people have hearts. So we'll see. But
that's it. Yeah, that's a conversation. I don't want to talk about that now, but you're right.
Sorry, I did want to end on a good note, but no, that was like you said, like we are at a crossroads with the hobby. We know that Topps is going to get the NBA and NFL licenses next year, and we're just barreling through, and there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of growth. There are going to be some people who are burnt out by losing on breaks and losing their shirts on, buying wax and all this stuff, the gambling aspect. But I know that there's so much passion and enthusiasm within the hobby community, and I just want people to join because it's so much fun. I love to see other people have a good time as well.
Yep, I feel the same way, man. I mean, yeah. I really don't want to say too much, but I'll just say that, man, I agree with what you're saying. I don't want to say too much, man. I'm trying not to make it too much of a conversation. I can keep going, so I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, no, it just means that we got to have you on again real soon. Again, maybe prior to Culture Collision 6, and maybe that can be part of like the promotional package that we do. Just kind of having you on and just talking about what to look forward to with January's iteration. So, with that said, though, thank you so much for being on. I can't believe we finally did it. It only took a year,
hey,
Raphael,
man,
but
right. It was fun. I appreciate it. I thought you were gonna give me some hard questions. I thought you were gonna ask me about some crazy stuff.
I looked, I gotta say, I looked at Instagram, albeit I didn't kind of put out the back signal too early. I did kind of do it a little bit last second because we were kind of trying to figure out if we're gonna do it tonight. Because again, I didn't mention this, but I mean, you guys are okay from the Hurricane Helene and all that, right? I mean, because that's the reason we got postponed from last week when we were gonna do it. Just a little behind the baseball, like we were gonna do it last week, and then just you guys had crazy weather. I mean, you had a event.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. Weather's been crazy, man. We had a hurricane come through here, and then we flew. We drove to North Carolina, Charlotte, and they had it bad there too, man. Wow. Some of the area was no power. You probably saw that recently today. I think Asheville, man. Pray for those guys out there.
Oh yeah,
had a dam break down there, which actually flooded the entire. I think most of the city of Asheville that has no power. They have nothing, man. They have no cell phone service or anything out there. So people are dying, man. So pray for those guys out there in Asheville, man. I don't know when this gets posted, but man, we gotta do something about these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely puts things in perspective. Like we got all the stuff on the walls and you got the cards, but like, I mean, you get one life. So no, but like you said, prayers up and like puts things in perspective. So thank you so much. Yeah, I if I had hard questions come through Instagram, I would have asked them. They didn't come through, so that's what we're gonna do. But this wasn't meant to be a fluff piece or a hot seat. It was more of like just a conversation, and I'm really appreciative that you had it with me.
No, I appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you for having me on the show, and look forward to having you in Atlanta, January 23rd to the 26th. It's gonna be fun. Come on out to Atlanta, Georgia. Culture Collision 6, Card Star Weekend. Your favorite influencers, me, and everybody else.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much. You have a wonderful evening.
You too, brother. Peace.
All right. Take care.